One evening, Kunle's mother knelt before him crying, begging him to have mercy on her. "Kunle, my son, please. I beg you. Have mercy on me and your late father. I'm too old to bear this burden. You are my only child, my hope and joy in my 30 years marriage. Don't allow the villagers laugh me. Stop provoking the gods before they take you from me." Kunle, seated with arms crossed, sighed. "Mema, let's not deceive ourselves. These old men and their so-called gods are the real problem. They keep our people in ignorance with their outdated rituals. I didn't go blind because I killed a snake. What I suffered was a medical condition. They are evil people. Who removes chicken's head alive in the name of sacrifice and stop innocent girls from having boyfriends in the name of spiritual purity in this era? I'll prove to you and everyone in this village that these so-called gods are powerless." His words shattered his mother's heart. She clutched her wrapper, sobbing quietly. "Kunle, why did you decide to pay me back in this manner? Is it a crime to labor and send you to school as my only hope?" Mema Omoteo now believed Kunle's education is a curse to him. She saw her efforts to train his only child and give him the best education as a waste. The thoughts consumed her as she cried silently over the path her only child has chosen. Kunle was the only child of his mother, a widow whose hope is her only surviving son. Mema Omoteo sacrificed everything to give Kunle a good education, hoping he would return to change her story. Instead, Kunle's education seemed to be a curse and made him develop disdain for the sacred traditions of his people. He despised the old ways of his people and always downplay the sacred tradition of his village. "Why should we keep worshipping snakes in this age of technology?" he would often scoff, much to the horror of his mother and the elders of the village. Kunle had already crossed the line years ago when he killed a snake at the river, a snake believed to be a child of the revered river goddess. That act had led to his sudden blindness, a condition the village elders declared a punishment from the gods. Only through the relentless sacrifices of his desperate mother did Kunle's sight return. After the trial, the entire village had expected Kunle to learn humility and stay away from anything that has to do with the tradition of the village. But Kunle was unrelenting. At the village council meeting, the elders discussed Kunle's growing defiance. "We've been patient with that boy for too long. Kunle is still alive because we are only pitying his poor mother, but we are getting to a point we will use him as an example." Pa Olatunji, the oldest among them, said. "If he continues this way, the goddess will strike him dead. We must act before his arrogance brings destruction to all of us." Determined to disprove the villagers' beliefs, Kunle began planning his next move. His target is the sacred eggs of the python, the revered village goddess. The python is believed to have lived for as long as the villagers can remember. These eggs were laid annually inside the hollow portion of the ancient Big Iroko tree standing at the center of the village where the village's rituals takes place annually. The villagers believed it has power to change their fortunes and gather to welcome the new children every year. Each of the children are shared amongst the elders and cared for it in their houses. Kunle believed that stealing and destroying these eggs would expose the goddess as powerless. When Kunle launched his search for the sacred eggs, his intention was to destroy it, stops the annual ritual and eventually convince some youths to kill the village goddess, the python. Each effort proved too difficult. He realized he needed to get a long and curved-edged stick to take the eggs without climbing to the top. This method is to help him quickly escape when the snake launches an attack. Late one night, Kunle woke up. With a torchlight and a long stick in hand, he tiptoed past his sleeping mother and gently opened the wooden door. He climbed carefully. He had already climbed one of the branches, but as he extended his stick to retrieve the eggs, the python sensed intrusion. With lightning speed, it launched an attack on him. Kunle lost his balance and fell, hitting the ground with a thud. He couldn't cry to avoid being caught and couldn't walk. In uncontrollable pain, he crawled to his room and screamed. He concocted a story when his mother rushed in. He told her he had a terrible dream where he fell from a tree and couldn't move his legs again. The next morning, he was rushed to the clinic, where doctors confirmed he had fractured his leg. He started his journey to recovery at the village clinic. 2 months later, fully recovered, Kunle made another attempt, this time with greater caution. By dawn, he had succeeded in stealing the sacred eggs, hiding them deep in the forest. The python's angry hisses echoed through the village. The elders, sensing the goddess's anger, inspected the iroko tree and discovered the eggs were missing. At this time, the goddess became unusually angry, came down and ready to unleash destruction on the village. The goddess is furious. We must do something fast. Somebody must have stolen the eggs to destroy us. Without the sacred eggs there will be no annual ritual, and the consequence is plague and deaths, Pa Olatunji declared. Amidst the commotion, Kunle suddenly showed up at the square. His smug expression drew suspicion. As if it was waiting for him to come, before anyone could react, the python launched itself at Kunle, biting deep into his leg. He screamed in agony, and the elders quickly pulled him away. The elders concluded he knew about the missing sacred eggs. In his pain, he was threatened to speak up or the goddess comes back at him again. Under immense pain, Kunle confessed to stealing the eggs. His poor mother and other villagers gasped in shock and disbelief. At this time the snake goddess launched another attack but stopped by its guardian. The eggs were recovered from where he hid them, but the unfortunate thing had happened. One of the eggs was broken, an irreversible offense. There's only one way to appease the goddess, announced the snake's guardian, a white-bearded elder. Kunle must marry the goddess to atone for his sins. If he refuses, he will die in 3 days from the venom. The marriage needs to happen immediately to appease the goddess. Kunle's mother fell to her knees, begging for mercy. His mother even offered herself in his place, but the elders shook their heads. The offender must pay the price, they insisted. In an unusual ceremony, Kunle, dressed in his finest attire, stood trembling as the enormous python was brought to the village square. The python, now calm, gently opened its mouth as if to give its consent and stands tall enough to meet Kunle's size. With tears streaming down his face, Kunle recited the vows dictated to him. I, Kunle, accept to be the husband of the village goddess. I shall perform my duties as husband, promise to provide for her, protect her, and never love another human in her place. I shall live in the same room allocated to us by the village elders. As he placed his hand on the python's head and kissed it, Kunle collapsed. He couldn't continue with the few other marriage rites. But Kunle and the village goddess were declared husband and wife by the village elders. Kunle was taken to the clinic for treatment. He concluded he had played into the hands of the village elders. He accepted their option because he knew they would kill him themselves and attribute it to the goddess. But he needs to work out plan. He needs to escape from the village and ran away with his mother. There, he devised a plan to escape the village. He arranged with the doctor to tell the elders that he will need to stay for 3 days to fully recover before he will assume his new role as the husband of the village goddess. When his mother visited him in the clinic that evening, he revealed his plan to her and begged her to flee with him to Lagos. Kunle, we've lived here all our lives. How can we leave everything behind? Kunle, I warned you but you refused to listen. See the destruction you brought upon us. I have lived in this village more than 50 years. I have been here since my childhood. How do you expect me to run away with you? To where? To start from where and abandoned our relatives, childhood memories, and farms? His mother argued in tears and left the clinic in anger. When Madame Omoteo went to the clinic with food the following day, Kunle was not there. He had escaped from the clinic, the doctor told her. She rolled on the floor and cried her eyes out. Her only child has ran away and abandoned her because of what he brought upon himself. After 2 days of walking on a lonely bushy path, Kunle finally saw a herdsman who carried him on one of the cows to a town nearby. From there, he boarded taxi going to Lagos with the last money on his pocket. When he dropped at the bus stop in Lagos, everything seemed strange to him. He has never been to this part of Nigeria. Please, Ma, I am new here. Can you accommodate me for a few days? I don't have anywhere to go. He begged a lady standing nearby. You must be out of your senses to think I will accommodate a grown-up man like you in my house. Are you mad or are you one of these criminals? She raged. I am neither of it, Ma. Please help me. He keeps following her until something struck Kimi, and agreed to accommodate him for 2 days only. That's fine, Ma, thank you, he said. And where is your bag? Kimi asked curiously. I don't have any bag, Ma. Kimi was confused, and several thoughts ran through her mind. She imagined if she had accepted to host a ghost in her house, but on a second thought, she imagined he might have been robbed. When they reached Kimi's house, Kunle was amazed with the fine edifice Kimi have all to herself. Without wasting time, Kimi instructed Kunle to take his bath, gave him soap and towel and food to eat. She showed him his room and bid him good night. The following morning, Kimi gave few unisex clothes she had to Kunle and invited him to the dining table. There she demanded to know who he is and what brought him to Lagos looking shabby without bag or anything. I am a graduate of University of Abuja. I am a data scientist, but after graduation I went back to the village to fight and free my people from idol worshipping. I wanted them to see that the village goddess they worship cannot change their fortunes. I wanted them to embrace science to have more graduates like me. But I think I took some wrong steps in this fight. I stole the sacred eggs of the snake goddess, not to sell them but to destroy it and stop my people from the annual ritual. I was caught and the snake bit deep into my lap. The elders forced me to marry the goddess as the only way to avoid dying in 3 days. I knew they were lying but had to follow their demands to avoid being killed. After the ritual, I escaped through the clinic I was receiving treatment, he explained. Kimi was shocked by Kunle's story, scared and confused at the same time. She is in between accepting him in her house or sending away. She thought she could be attacked by the goddess but quickly dismissed it. What you did is wrong. I have a strong connection with our tradition. For people to drop what they've believed all their lives takes a lot of convincing and it's a gradual process. I am an African and I respect our tradition. What people believe has nothing to do with their education and exposure. I will help you, but first you will have to start working immediately to change your condition, she said. Kimi told Kunle she is the CEO of Datadot and would like to employ him if he's qualified for a vacant position of data specialist. Within few months of working with Kimi, Kunle convinced everyone of his ability and Kimi approved his promotion to the position of deputy manager of the company. Kimi, still single at 30, grew close to Kunle. She believed she has seen a partner in business and marital life. She summoned the courage one night and confessed her feeling to Kunle. Kunle couldn't reject the proposal, and eventually agreed to marry Kimi after thanking her for changing his story. He confessed to Kimi that he hardly sleep at night. He has been having nightmares of big python chasing and trying to swallow him. Sometimes he found himself in a room with the python believing to be the goddess forcing him to sleep with her. Kimi blamed Kunle for keeping this to himself all the while and promised to help him find a solution. At Ipa village, Kunle's mother, Madam Omatoya, was subjected to ridicule. Her farmland was forcefully taken away from her and made to provide foods for the goddess despite the danger of going closer with the unusual rage it developed after Kunle escaped from the village. Madam Omatoya doesn't know how to cry anymore. It's 5 years since her only child, Kunle, escaped from the village. 5 years of not hearing from him to know if he is dead or alive. She's tired of praying and sometimes believed Kunle might have been dead for having the courage to abandon her. Kunle never give up. He hoped to return to his village someday and change the story. We will be going to your village tomorrow. I've talked to few friends who understand the tradition. They said if we can appease the goddess with all sacrifices they will demand, you will be free. Kunle couldn't contain his joy when Kimi broke the news to him. He is now ready to appease the goddess and live a free life and allow the people to follow their belief. Kimi believed with their wealth, they can build tech hub in the village, and the youth would have no choice than to embrace science instead of believing the goddess can make them rich without playing their part. The following morning, Kimi's friends arrived and they set for Ipa village. When they reached the village, they went to the house of the guardian of the village goddess, an old man in his 70s who invited other elders. Kunle, Kimi, and her friends all knelt down and begged for forgiveness. The elders listed the sacrifice they needed to perform to appease the goddess, including 5 cows, 50 tortoise, 1 basket of kola nut and other items. Without wasting time, Kunle provided the money to buy them. Madam Omoteo couldn't control her tears when she saw her son. "I wanted to die, I've suffered, I've missed you, please don't leave me again," she said in tears, embracing her son. Kunle was in tears too, and he found peace in the warm embrace of her mother, who sacrificed everything to make him who he is. The ritual sacrifice was a big occasion in the village. All the 5 cows were killed and used to prepare enough feast for all the villagers to eat. Other items were placed under the big iroko tree. Villagers were allowed to pick anything they like and be happy. The elders said this will appease the goddess and makes her happy too. After the sacrifice, Kunle was declared free by the elders. He promised his parents that he would now be coming to the village more often. Kunle introduced Kimi to his mother as his wife-to-be. Few months later, Kunle and Kimi got married, in an elaborate wedding in Lagos. Families of the couples, captains of industries and close associates were at the wedding to celebrate their beautiful beginning. After few months, Kunle and Kimi returned to the village to build a befitting house for his mother. Through their foundation, they inaugurate a tech hub in the village to train the youths on tech skills, bringing innovation and opportunity to the village. Kunle, now at peace, had not only redeemed himself but had also transformed his village for the better. But something bad happened. Kimi was already 5 months pregnant when they went to the village to commission the tech hub. On their way back to Lagos, they had a terrible accident and the car somersaulted twice before it finally landed in a ditch. Every motorists who witnessed the accident were in tears, believing the travelers in the car were dead. Kunle struggled to open the door and shouted for help. Kimi was pulled out in a pool of blood. Kunle had minor injuries and focused on getting his wife treated. In the hospital, Kimi failed to regain consciousness after 2 days. She was still in coma, but the doctor assured Kunle she would be fine and no major concerns on her pregnancy. Kunle spent his days in the hospital, constantly keeping an eye on Kimi, hoping she will wake up and call his name. When Kimi touched Kunle's hand one night in the hospital and called his name, he couldn't contain his joy. Kimi eventually recovered after few weeks. Kunle made the pregnancy journey an easy ride for Kimi. He drove her to hospital for her antenatal care and always around to help her. He was with her when Kimi gave birth in the hospital to a baby boy whom they named Toby. Kunle's journey, from defiance and arrogance to redemption and growth, became a tale of courage, love, and the power of change. If you like this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.